I hope people won't mind us recording this meeting for future references for people who might not be able to attend. Especially we heard that there was an IT technical problem that might have prevented some of our administrative staff members to receive our email invitation. So if you don't mind, we'll record the meeting so that those who will not be able to attend can view it later. Okay, I think we'll get started and people can join us later. Hello, everyone, and thank you for taking the time to attend this information session. I want to welcome you, especially to the new academic year. And I wish you all the best for this new semester and for the rest of the academic year. The beginning of the academic year is often a time for new initiatives. And this survey regulation and the review process that we'll cover are certainly new initiatives. Many of you probably, or at least some of you, are already familiar with our annual administrative survey regulation, which was recently approved by the Managing Council. Before I hand things over to Banu, who is our survey coordinator, I just want to take maybe a couple of minutes to highlight what this regulation is and why it is needed. So basically, this survey regulation is, Banu, if you can move on to the next slides, please. Yes, so basically this survey regulation is nothing more than a quality check or a quality filter, if you will. So basically its overall objective is to improve the quality of data being generated through administrative surveys. Later on, Banu will talk a little bit about what we mean by administrative surveys. So what the regulation really aims to do is to ensure that administrative surveys adhere to basic quality standards, okay, from design to execution. And you might wonder why we want to focus on quality. I mean, the simple reason for wanting to focus on quality is that there are consequences to having poorly designed surveys or surveys that are not of high quality. And you can see some of these consequences here. Poorly designed surveys, first of all, may result in collecting unreliable data and sometimes even wrong information, which in turn can mislead decision-making. So this is a very important aspect. We really do want to pay close attention to how we design surveys, how we implement them, how we analyze the information we collect, but also how we present that information to ensure that the data we are collecting or generating is actually reliable and can be helpful to decision-making. And another consequences that is very common for poorly designed surveys would be a waste of resources. I mean, if you design a survey poorly and administer it, that will most likely result in a waste of resources, time, and other resources, not just for those designing and implementing the survey itself, but also for those participating in the survey. So again, so this is an aspect that we really want to pay close attention to. And another consequences is that poor quality surveys also decrease participants' willingness to respond to future surveys. I think many of us have had that experience. You receive a survey, you look through it and see that, I'm not too convinced about the quality of this survey. chances are the next time you receive another survey, you won't even bother to open it or look at it. So the result is participation rate would decrease. So we really want to pay closer attention to how we design and implement our surveys. We do have at NU an institutional research strategy, which was approved by the Academic Council back in 2019. And the second strategic priority in that strategy focuses on fostering an analytical, data-driven culture at NU, which is an important aspect that we have really been trying to emphasize. And part of what it means to be an analytical or data-driven decision-making organization is to have high-quality data. Those of you who are members of our NU Analytical Talent Network might remember that back in 2019, we had an extensive discussion about the characteristics of analytical organizations. And you might also remember that we had 5 key characteristics, and the top one was high quality data. So high quality data is really one of the key features of analytical organizations. So we want to ensure that, again, just to emphasize this point, that surveys that are being administered at NU really aim to produce data that is of high quality. Also, that's the basic idea behind the survey regulation itself. I hope people will not see this regulation as somehow an administrative burden or as a bureaucratic process that is being introduced. Not at all. We have actually designed this regulation with a professional development mindset. So what we really want to achieve is for people who are designing surveys to be more thoughtful in terms of how they design survey instruments, how they implement them, how they analyze data, but also how they share the information that they generate through these surveys. So it really is, from our perspective, a professional development sort of capacity building that this regulation intends to achieve. In this session, we are really just basically going to quickly go through the regulation, and Banu will highlight the main review process that surveys will be going through, as well as provide some guidelines on how to prepare survey proposals and how to submit them. But in the future, we also hope to maybe provide more guideline by organizing a series of survey design, implementation, and analysis seminars or workshops. This is something that we'll be working on. We certainly hope that maybe at some point this semester, we'll probably offer the first workshop or seminar on this aspect to help people design surveys. So we'll be looking at different aspects of survey design and implementation, all the way from conception to execution. But for now, what we want to focus on is basically, we want to give you a brief overview of the regulation itself, as well as the review process that surveys will be going through. So having said that, I want to turn things over to Banu. Banu, he's our survey coordinator within Institutional Research and Analytics, and she will be serving also as the secretary of the survey review panel. And Banu will walk you through the regulation and through the review process itself. Banu, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Feli, for a great introduction. I would also like to welcome all of our colleagues. I hope you can hear me well. I want to next talk about the surveys that are subject to this regulation and surveys that are exempt from this regulation. First of all, surveys that are subject to this regulation have to have an administrative purpose. What does it mean? It means collecting individual opinions and experiences for the purposes of quality control, administrative needs assessment, program evaluation, planning, development, and improvement of effectiveness. And another criteria that will be applied to select the surveys that are subject is the target population. So surveys that will be administered to the entire NU community or its broad subset. For example, for the entire community, it would be all NU students or all faculty and staff, or a broad subset such as CPS students only, or only undergraduate students, or only faculty. These are the main two criteria through which we will look at the surveys. But let me talk about the surveys that are exempt from this regulation. I think this will give a better idea, more clear picture on what are the surveys that are applicable to this regulation. First of all, academic research surveys. Surveys that are conducted either by faculty or students that are approved by IREC will not need to go through the review process under this regulation. Student surveys for a dissertation, thesis, or a class project assignment, these surveys are also exempt from the regulation. Course evaluation surveys that are carried on a semester basis. Also, surveys administered by one structural unit to the stakeholders from the same unit. For example, if USM would like to conduct a survey among its employees, they are free from this regulation. They do not need to go through a review. Also, surveys implemented by the Faculty Senate or NU student organizations like student government or student clubs do not need to go through the review process. Also, surveys that are point of service, that we call the small scale surveys that are usually administered to a specific group of people who either attended a certain event or have used specific surveys and service, and then they have to fill out some sort of an evaluation or feedback form. And also surveys that are conducted by us, Institutional Research and Analytics, are also exempt from this regulation. I hope these points now will give you a little bit more clear picture. Like as an example, I could say surveys that were previously, for example, administered to collect information about Directum or USM services, or surveys on internationalization and things like that. So basically, mostly surveys administered by NU administrative units. The survey review under this regulation will be mainly carried by the survey review panel. Its composition was established by the decision of the provost I think a few weeks ago or last week, very recently. So for this academic year, the composition is Feli will be serving as the chair, and we have on board with us Aliya Suleimanova, who is basically a quality check person of academic programs within the Office of the Provost. She has a good experience with surveys at the NU and outside. Also, we have with us Araysa Niyazova. She's advisor at the Department of Student Affairs. She has also good expertise in survey design and implementation. As Feli mentioned, I will be also on the board of the panel serving both as a member and secretary. Dana Abildayeva from the Strategic Planning and Experience Sharing Department. From that department, she has a good grasp and overview of all sorts of activities happening at the NU. We also have with us Galianur Musina from the Department of Human Capital Development. She has an excellent background in public policy, and she had experience at NU School and also in the Office of the President. And last but not least, we have Gulden Shokatova, General Manager of the Admission Department. She has also been with NU for a long time, has been involved in many different processes, and we believe she will bring also valuable voice to the panel. Yes, I would like to welcome our panel members. I'm pretty sure they're with us today. And next, I want to talk about what will be the role of the survey review panel and what they will not be responsible for. So first of all, the survey review panel will be responsible for the oversight over a new administrative service. They will ensure that the service will adhere to the goals of this regulation. However, the survey review panel will not be responsible for providing survey design and implementation support. They will not be responsible for improving the quality of the surveys. And this, what this will basically imply is that it will be the initiators' full responsibility to familiarize themselves with the survey design processes, to develop a good quality survey instrument. And of course, as IR, we will try to do our best to provide support. And for example, today's information session is also part of this overall a new capacity building activity that we are hoping to conduct, a series of sessions and webinars. But the initiator should not expect to write a sort of a draft and then send it to the review panel and wait for the panel to help them improve the instrument. This is not the role of the panel. I want to quickly review the timeline of the review process to explain how this mechanism works. Basically, the panel will review the proposals only 4 times a year, in the beginning and middle of each fall and spring semesters. So the initiator has time prior to the certain deadline to develop the survey proposal, which we will talk about more in depth today, the survey instrument itself, and submit it to the IR within a proposed deadline, which is already posted on our website. And 3 weeks later, the panel will announce the decision. The panel will either approve, reject, or revise, improve the survey proposal. This last option will be reserved for cases that require very minimal, very little improvement on the survey instrument. Just to note this beforehand. So, for example, the dates that were established for the fall semester, the first deadline is September 3rd, and the second is October 15th. So the survey proposals are collected before the deadline. They can be sent to our email ir@nu.edu.kz. Then for 3 weeks, the panel will review the proposals, finalize their decision, and 3 weeks later, I will communicate to each initiator the decision of the panel. And after, for example, if you submitted your proposal before September 3rd, after September 24th, you'll be able to implement your project. We do understand that this is the first semester we will be implementing, and maybe not all of the people will have enough time, but we will try to be flexible this semester, try to cooperate, coordinate, but for the future, we just want our colleagues to keep in mind that if you are planning a survey project, you need to prepare for it well in advance, preferably like a semester in advance. And I also wanted to mention our website. I understand that the information we're talking about today, it might be a lot to grasp at once. So we have our website, ie.nu.edu.kz, within a section of IRA and the surveys. You can find a lot of information regarding this regulation, regarding overall how to submit survey proposal. The proposal form itself is downloadable. You can find the survey calendar, survey review timeline. These three specific tabs will contain all the information that you need, and today's information sessions recording will also be posted under the survey design resources. So if you have any questions, you can always check our website for references. This is a general overview of the survey regulation. We just wanted to, this is very brief. I mean, more detailed information can be found either on the website or in the document itself, or you can also email or contact us. Next, I want to talk about survey proposal. Survey proposal, what is it? What is a survey proposal? Why it is important? Survey proposal is something that should be the very first step in developing a survey project. Survey proposal should be developed before writing a single survey question. We want to highlight this because from our experience, it is very quick to jump to a conclusion that, oh, we need a survey because there is this online instrument that makes it easy and accessible to everyone. And there is always sort of misunderstanding that it's very easy just to write up a couple of questions and send it to our students or staff. And believe me, this is not the way to proceed to develop a good survey project. And we encourage to start with the survey proposal, because survey proposal is a foundation of a quality survey instrument. If you have a well-developed survey proposal, it will be so much easier to write a good survey instrument. The survey proposal covers such aspects as like the main research question or purpose, reason for conducting a survey, justification for the survey approach, and the initiator's role, and etc. I will talk about main aspects today more in depth. Just wanted to show you, this is the survey proposal form. You can download it from the website that I mentioned before. As you can see, you will need to fill out some basic information like the title of the survey, who is running it, how we can contact you. And also the proposal form asks questions about the research question or purpose, what is the reason for conducting such surveys, etc. This form needs to be filled, and along with the survey instrument already, it needs to be sent to ir@nu.edu.kz before the deadline. So this is the one of the very important steps in starting a survey project, and that's why I wanted today look at several items on the survey proposal, not all of it, but to touch upon the aspects that you might probably have questions about. The first, I want to talk about the main research question or research purpose. Second, I want to cover reason and rationale for conducting a survey. Third, I want to talk about why survey is the best approach. Fourth, we'll talk about the initiator's role, why the initiator thinks he or her, she is in the best position to do the survey. We'll also want to talk about target population and safety and security of survey data. And as an example, I will try to talk about alumni survey that is under development. We as IR and together with Career and Advising are planning to launch an alumni survey this fall. So to give an example, I will talk a little bit about the alumni survey too. So first item, main research question or main research purpose. In this section of the survey proposal, we want the initiator to describe it and describe it as specific as possible, not to use too general or too abstract statement. For example, if we talk about alumni survey, there is one way to formulate it. For example, main research purpose is to collect information about current and new alumni. Or the purpose of the new alumni survey is to provide information and insight on alumni occupation, achievements, perception of academic and non-academic experiences at the NU, social and civic engagement, inclination and capacities to support the NU. I want to, if it will, oh, probably no. I just wanted to ask which survey, well, so which research question formulation you think is better? I have launched the poll. Do you see?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay, people are responding. Let me give a little bit more time. Oh, okay. Okay, well, this is pretty trivial, of course, Paul, and it's a no-brainer. And as you can see, people, of course, chose the second formulation of the research statement, which is correct, of course. Having a very specific, clear, not specific, probably clear research question is, first of all, the very first for whom it will be helpful is for the initiator, because this is practically a foundation of the survey instrument. For example, so with the second formulation of the alumni survey, this could be used as basically sections of the survey. So the first section could be on alumni occupation and drafting questions regarding occupation, then achievements, then perception of, for example, academic experience, and then separately non-academic experiences. So as you can see, having a clear, good, well-formulated research question or research purpose will be already a huge contribution to having a successful survey project. I'm pretty sure we will get back to this. We'll talk about the research question more in the future, but I just wanted to emphasize that this is probably one of the very first steps to think about, to write when planning a survey project, not a survey question, but it's a research question and research purpose. Second, I want to talk about the rationale for conducting a survey. Reason and rationale, it can include the following items. For example, justification why the survey topic is of value to NU, why it is important to investigate this issue, or to tell how the survey is aligned with NU mission, goals, and values. Initiator can also state how the results of the survey will be beneficial for NU, or describes the status quo, or describe what is happening at the moment with this issue, and indicate the need that there is a need for a survey research. For example, for the alumni survey, the reason rationale would sound like this. For example, information on alumni destination will be used for marketing and student recruitment. A reflection on academic and non-academic collegiate experiences will be used to improve the quality of programs and services at the NU. Information on civic engagement will provide the evidence for the public benefit of higher education. And finally, the alumni survey will serve as an important data source for investigating the impact of collegiate experiences on alumni occupation, accomplishments, and inclination to support the NU. So this is one of the ways to provide a rationale for conducting a survey, but it can be different for different survey projects, of course. Yes, and as Feli mentioned, we'll have a Q&A session at the end, but if you have questions at the moment, please feel free to stop me and ask a question. The next item to consider is why survey is the best approach. Before starting a survey project, it's important to think, is there any alternative data on the topic of investigation that already exists? For example, information in the database, or there were surveys that were conducted in the past on a similar topic, or surveys that collected information that you need, maybe information on paper in the archives. This is very important because we did have witness cases when, before checking this point, people quickly jumped into doing a survey when really the information they were looking for already existed at the NU. So this is very important step. And next, I want to talk about cases when survey is the best approach, when it is appropriate, when it's not appropriate. Surveys are appropriate and best fit for obtaining information from large samples of population. This means that if you are planning a survey and your target population is 30 or 50 people, the survey will not be a good fit because there simply will be not enough participants to be able to draw statistically meaningful conclusions. That's why.
Sorry, can I interject?
Sure.
That's true. Sorry to interrupt, but I'm following this discussion with great interest. But that's not true in the case you administer an expert survey. For an expert survey, a sample of 30 people, it is believed to be enough. That was a point that Lever and Benoit made in their work at the beginning of this decade. So it depends on whether you're trying to get a large N study, you want to have a sense of what the population feels like. But if you think that the experts know a lot, a smaller sample can be acceptable. Just a thought, eh?
Yes. I agree with you. It's just that if you have 30 responses, this is great. But response rate is not. It's pretty good at NU, but responses are not that generous. So if you have a population of 30 and you administer and you get 50% response, it will be not really enough. Of course, there are the minimal number probably is around 30 of respondents, but it's at NU. It might be a little bit risky when you have a very small size of population. And for such cases, we usually recommend doing interviews for interview approach, this is perfectly acceptable, a perfect number. And I want to talk more about the interviews. Interviews are, for example, surveys are not the best fit for gaining context or deep understanding, for brainstorming or tackling very complex issues. This is also usually best fit for doing interviews. And as you mentioned, for example, if it's an expert survey and the number is about 30, the panel might advise to do an interview, to go for an interview approach, because it will allow to gain more information, navigate the course of the survey, to ask additional questions, to view nonverbal cues and things like that. So generally, survey will be recommended for large samples of population, but there might be instances, as you said, that may fall out, and it will be reviewed by the panel. Okay, and also surveys are best when they focus more on quantitative data rather than qualitative data, which means little to no open-ended questions. This is very important because if you are launching a survey and you have about 15 to 20 questions asking, what do you think about this? And how do you feel about that? And they are all open-ended questions. This is not a good survey instrument, both for the respondent, because responding to an open-ended questions is harder. It's more time and effort. It requires more time and effort rather than responding to closed-ended questions. And from the point of administrator of the survey, analyzing open-ended questions is very time-consuming. It will require more manual approach than analysis of quantitative data. And for example, in IR service, we usually include no more than 3 open-ended questions. So this is also if your survey again has a lot of open-ended questions, maybe it's best fit to do an interview instead of doing a survey. And another point I wanted to talk about is that the survey is an instrument that is aimed to measuring attitudes, opinion, and behaviors, rather than focusing solely on some demographic and background information. There are examples that I knew when some surveys are called surveys, but they're not necessarily a survey because they do not ask about your opinion, your feelings, or attitudes, but rather just ask factual information like your job title, your name, and then your status regarding to something, your, I don't know, educational background, to fill out information about your educational background, things like this. So these are also not really considered as a survey and will not be recommended. If you're collecting such information, the survey is probably not the best fit for this approach. I hope. I think we will get back to these points in the future again. I just wanted to give you like a sort of a rule of thumb and general information about why, which cases surveys should be viewed as an appropriate approach. Also, another item I wanted to talk about today is why does the initiator thinks that they are in the best position to do the survey? And here we will pay attention to 2 main things. Is that it's does the initiator have expertise or experience relative to the issue of investigation. For example, if the survey is being conducted on students' preferences in sports clubs, and the survey is being administered by I don't know, for example, registrar who is not student affairs department, student service department, not athletic center, but the registrar, we will of course ask a question why it is the case, why registrar thinks that they are in the best position to conduct such survey. And another item is the basic familiarity with survey research. We would like the initiator, of course, to have some familiarity, to review some of the resources that will be uploaded on our website, to have a basic familiarity, to be able to produce a decent survey instrument. So in this section, these are particular things that the survey panel will pay special attention to. Also, I would like to talk about target population of the survey. First of all, I just wanted to clarify what is a population, what is a sample. Population is the entire group that you want to draw conclusions about. And the sample is a specific group that you collect the data from. The sample will always be smaller than a population. Well, in cases at NU, for example, you can either survey entire student body, like all students at NU, or there is a possibility to draw a sample, appropriate sample that will be a good representative of the population. For example, not 4,000 students, but 500 students, and survey the small subset of the student population. IR, we can help you do that. We can create a sample, create a temporary mailing list with the help of IT, and we can provide such option. And also, we would like the initiators to think carefully when choosing a target population. It's not always just simply choosing just students or these students. For example, for the alumni survey, we are targeting undergraduate and graduate alumni who completed their degrees at NU at least 2 years before the survey implementation. This 2-year time period is required so for the alumni to obtain some experience either at their work or their graduate studies. This will give them a ground and a perspective to be able to reflect on their transition to workforce, their first jobs, their career satisfaction, to provide the feedback on any academic and non-academic experience, and talk about their connectedness to NU after completing their degree. So it is very important to ask, when choosing a target population, it's very important to ask, why do you think that these participants will be able to provide you the information that you are looking for? Why do they have the experience or background to answer your questions? So this is another point we wanted to talk about today. And last but not least, we also wanted to mention about the safety and security of survey data. In this section of the survey proposal, we will be mainly focusing on two things, looking for information on two things. First is ensuring either anonymity or confidentiality of the survey. Anonymous survey is the survey which will not allow for the responses to be traced back to a specific individual. Even the person who is administering the survey will not be able to trace it. Such surveys will usually be disseminated through existing NU mailing list or through mailing lists that are created by IR specifically for your survey. And also there are cases where a survey needs to be confidential but not anonymous. These are the surveys where the administrator can link the responses to a specific individual. But the administrator can never disclose this link to others or report the student to report the survey survey outcomes in a way that can lead others to identify specific participants. This will be such surveys will be reviewed by the panel very carefully. We will need a very strong justification why the survey needs to be confidential, not anonymous. Such surveys will be disseminated through personalized survey invitations. Surveys that are confidential but not anonymous can be administrated by units that already have access to information, to contact information. For example, admission department, they can do confidential but not anonymous survey of applicants. HR can do such survey among staff, but not other units who do not have access to this contact information. As I mentioned, such surveys will be taken very seriously and reviewed very carefully. And the second item that we will look at on the survey proposal is who will have access to the survey data. Because after the survey is completed, who will be involved in the analysis of the survey results? Will it be just one unit, or it will be a collaboration with other units or other individuals? This information also needs to be disclosed when submitting a survey proposal. So this is it for today. This again is just very brief overview, introductory session. As Feli mentioned, we hope to have a series of sessions like this to help our community to develop good survey projects and survey instruments. If you have any questions or comments, please welcome. We'll be happy to answer. I hope I didn't go over very quick. I hope things were clear.
Thank you, Banu. It was clear from my perspective. We do have time, perhaps around 10 minutes for questions or comments. So if you have any questions or comments, and also we'll hang around a little bit, Banu and I, after the session for people who might have additional questions.
I have a question. Thank you, Banu, for the presentation. Feli, also your team did a great job. And when you mentioned about experts, is initiator, there was some question related, could be expert or not in this kind of survey. It means, is there any alternative? For example, if initiator is not expert in preparing such kind of surveys and so on, does it mean we need to outsource it, or this is something not understandable?
Sure, Janar, I can. What we said was not expert in surveys, but expert or experienced in the issue, in the topic of investigation. So if you are, for example, doing a survey about students' involvement in sport activities, you should be either athletic center or Department of Student Services to have an experience of how students are engaged. What do they usually do? For example, budgeting department, if they will do a survey on student academic experience, this will not make sense because they are not dealing with this issue. This is not they do not have much experience with it. So the panel will, of course, ask a question why you are doing this survey. So the expertise is not in the survey design, but in the topic of investigation.
Thank you. Now I understand.
And of course, to add to that, as Banu said, we do also want people to be generally familiar with survey research. So it wouldn't make sense for someone to do a survey without really taking the time to develop basic familiarity with survey research. At least take time to explore survey design and implementation, and prove to the panel that you actually do have the background that is needed to develop a quality instrument. Because this is something that we have seen over and over again. So it's important, in addition to the kind of expertise and experience that Banu mentioned, it's important that people do invest time. So if you are doing a survey, it's important you invest time to be familiar with the survey design and implementation process. So the panel needs to have a sense, or at least some basic evidence that you are actually equipped to design the instrument in the first place.
I see. Thank you.
And as I mentioned, we will try to update our website and include resources that will be helpful in familiarizing yourself with the survey design process. And we will encourage our community to participate in our future sessions.
Any other questions? Okay, I don't see any additional questions in the chat.
Okay,
So I think if, okay.
I see Uljas from USM has just asked where he can download the rules and approved instructions. It can be downloaded either from the database, in the Directum database of all approved regulations, or you can go to our website, as I mentioned. If you tap the submit a survey proposal, you will get step-by-step instruction what to do, where you can access information. It's in 3 languages, so you can use either the directory of all internal documents in Directum or on our website. Ayjan just texted you the address.
Our newly published institutional effectiveness website.
Yes, yes.
Where you can find plenty of information.
Statistics report, a lot of things actually. Yeah, we would encourage to check the website.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
May I ask if, I mean, I know there are probably quite a number of administrative staff here, and this regulation for the most part applies to administrative units. Schools, for the most part, I think would be exempt. I mean, especially if they are only doing internal surveys. Let's say SSH wants to do a survey of their faculty to understand maybe some of the challenges faculty members are facing. That's purely internal. They wouldn't want, typically they wouldn't want to go through the review process. But in case you have any questions as to whether any particular survey you want to implement falls under the regulation, please check with us. And then we'll have a look and see if your survey needs to go through the review process or whether the review process is waived. And the same thing applies to administrative units as well.
Uljas was asking, so every survey must be approved by the panel? No, not every, but I know, Uljas, that USM do surveys semi-annually to find out satisfaction of a new community with USM services. This survey will be subject to the regulation. So when you are planning, for example, usually I think you do it in November, December, you will have to bring it for the review of the survey panel. And another new thing that the regulation enforces is that most of the surveys should not be done more than once a year. So I know that USM usually used to do in December and then towards June or something like this. This should not be the case anymore. I have informed Indira about it before, like in spring semester, that when the regulation will be enforced, the survey should not be done twice a year, only once a year. And we will ask for a report after doing the survey. I mean, we can talk about more in detail if you would like after the meeting, but just to let you know, yes, the survey that you usually administer will be subject to review.
And that's an important point, Banu, because one of the things that we want to minimize is survey fatigue and survey burden on our ANU student, staff, and faculty members. In general, we don't want people to do the same survey more than once. I can see that there may be some very exceptional circumstances in which someone might want to do the same survey once, but you would want to provide, we would want to see a convincing argument for that. The argument cannot be just that, well, we are required to do this survey more than once. I can see a situation in which someone does a baseline survey and then they do some kind of intervention aimed to change behavior or something like that. And then after that, they want to do another survey to see if the intervention worked. This would be justified. So basically, but in general, and from the surveys that I have seen so far at ANU, more survey would not fall under that exception. So in general, we want people to limit their survey to once per year to minimize survey burden and survey fatigue on our ANU population. But if there is really a compelling reason for wanting to do the same survey twice, then you would want to provide a strong justification for that. And the panel can certainly look at that request a little bit more closely.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I see it's almost 3, it's almost 4. So I think we will stop here, and thank you very much for taking the time to attend this session. As Banu said, we'll try to organize more in-depth sessions that are looking at specific aspects of survey design and implementation, maybe possibly including analysis and data presentation in the future. But Banu and I will hang around for a few minutes in case any of you have any additional questions. Please feel free to stay online, and then we can try to address your question. But thank you very much for taking the time to participate in this session. We hope to see you again in the future. And special thanks to our panel members.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Feli, I just wanted to add, I know the invitation did not go, initially, for some reason, did not go out to all staff. There was some technical issues. So if you know anyone who would benefit from this webinar, please direct them to our website. We will upload it on the website. Maybe somebody didn't see the invitation on time to participate, but they need this information. Please feel free to forward them.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I have some questions related to my project, Feli and Banu. Maybe if we stay and discuss it separately. And just a few questions. Now I understand. Because this session provides more clear picture how this regulation, these rules work. So I will prepare. Do you remember previously I sent you the list of questions, survey questions, the draft survey to be addressed to alumni and new graduates and so on. And I need to put everything to the application. I forgot, to the
Proposal
template form.
form. Mhm.
Proposal form, and to submit it to the panel session. But I have some questions on